Hello, welcome back. We are finally getting to Genesis chapter 25. It's another kind of a long one with some names in it, so uh, it's going to be fun. Don't forget to like and share. Every time you just heart one of these or whatever, it sends it out further to people and more people find out about it. And that's our goal. So let's jump into Genesis 25, and I'm going to be reading from the Immersed Bible, the New Living Translation. Abraham married another wife whose name was Keturah. Uh, Also, if this is the first one you're seeing, you may have seen chapter 26 first. It's because chapter 26, really the action, everything in it happens before chapter 25. We just got them out of order. It's not a big deal, doesn't change the Bible, doesn't change Jesus, but uh, it's something to know as you study the Bible. The verses, chapters, and all that stuff were put in by people. So sometimes we got it wrong. So Abraham married another wife whose name was Keturah. She gave birth to Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, Shuan. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan. Dedan's descendants were the Asherites, Lisherites, and Luminites. Lumites. Midian's sons were Epher, Enoch, Abida, and Elidah. These were the descendants of Abraham through Keturah. Abraham gave everything he owned to his son Isaac. But before he died, he gave gifts to the sons of his concubines and sent them off to a land in the east away from Isaac. Abraham lived for 175 years and he died at a ripe old age, having lived a long and satisfying life. He breathed his last and joined his ancestors in death. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar and the Hittite. We saw that earlier whenever he bought it. This was the field Abraham had purchased from the Hittites, where he had buried his wife Sarah. After Abraham's death, God blessed his son Isaac, who settled near Beer Lahai Roi in the Negev. And the Negev is just basically desert, wilderness kind of thing. Uh, this is the account of the family of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, through Hagar, Sarah's Egyptian servant. Here's a list by their names and clans of Ishmael's descendants. The oldest was Nehobat, followed by Kedar, Abdiel, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Timur, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedemah. These 12 sons of Ishmael became the founders of 12 tribes named after them, listed according to the places they settled and camped. Ishmael lived for 137 years, then he breathed his last and joined his ancestors in death. Ishmael's descendants occupied the region from Havilah to Shur, which is east of Egypt, in the direction of Ashur. There they lived in open hostility with all their relatives. Glad that doesn't happen anymore. This is the account of the family of Isaac, the son of Abraham. When Isaac was 40 years old, he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Padan Aram, and the sister of Laban, the Aramean. Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was unable to have children. The Lord answered Isaac's prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant with twins. But the two children struggled with each other in her womb. So she went to ask the Lord about it. Why is this happening to me? She asked. And the Lord told her, the sons of your womb will become two nations. From the very beginning, the two nations will be rivals. One nation will be stronger than the other, and your older son will serve your younger son. When the time came to give birth, Rebekah discovered that she had indeed had twins. The first one was very red at birth and covered with thick hair like a fur coat. They named him Esau. When the other twin was born, with his hand grasping Esau's heel, they named him Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when the twins were born. I do not want that for my 60th birthday. And the boys grew up. Esau became a skillful hunter. He was an outdoorsman, but Jacob was had a quiet temperament, preferring to stay at home. Isaac loved Esau because he enjoyed eating the wild game Esau brought home. But Rebekah loved Jacob. One day when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau arrived home from the wilderness exhausted and hungry. Esau said to Jacob, I'm starved. Give me some of that red stew. All right, Jacob replied, but trade me your rights as the firstborn son. Look, I'm dying of starvation, said Esau. What good is my birthright to me now? But Jacob said, "First you must swear that your birthright is mine." So Esau swore an oath, thereby selling all the rights as the firstborn to his brother Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. Esau ate the meal and got up and left. He showed contempt for his rights as the firstborn. So Keturah gave Abraham several children. One son will play a role in where did my notes go? Okay, he's going to play a role in Moses' life. That son is named Midian because we read about Moses going to the land of Midian. Well, we haven't in this study, but it's coming, I promise. The Midianites were where Moses fled from Egypt too, in that with the burning bush, and that's where Moses also found his wife. Abraham gave everything to Isaac, which set the stage for a lot of jealousy with Ishmael, obviously, and that continues to this day. We see it on the news every day, basically. But again, we have the God principle of dividing, electing, and separating. God is constantly doing that. He will pull us away, push us away, or sometimes throw us away if we're being disobedient, just won't go. He'll make us go that way. So it was entirely up to the father which of his children from concubines would gain inheritance. Remember, it's a very patriarchal society. The men decided about 98% of everything. So the other sons got substantial gifts, but Abraham was wealthy. So he gave them all something, but they may not have been everything. Abraham then sent these sons away, dividing and electing and separating himself because he knew that they couldn't stay around Abraham if he had the most. Jealousy was going to take them over. Also, notice which direction he sent them, to the east. He sent them towards God, but that's not necessarily what they did. So Abraham dies. In verse 11, God blessed Isaac. Isaac is now the new patriarch of the Hebrews. Ishmael is not punished. He just couldn't be the son of promise. He was given almost an equal inheritance. He just didn't get the authority. He didn't get the leadership part. So Abraham would provide Isaac's wealth and prosperity, but Yahweh would provide for Ishmael's. Everything would come from him, not Abraham. As far as growth, he gave him some stuff, but while the Arab peoples are generally Israel's enemy, they are not an accursed people. They are against Israel, obviously, but they're not cursed necessarily. So let's read Isaiah 60, 1 through 7. I'll jump over there real quick. It says, "Future glory for Jerusalem. Arise, Jerusalem. Let your light shine for all to see. For the glory of the Lord rises to shine on you. Darkness as black as night covers all the nations of the earth. But the glory of the Lord rises and appears over you. All nations will come to your light. Mighty kings will come to see your radiance. Look and see, for everyone is coming home. Your sons are coming from distant lands. Your little daughters will be carried home. Your eyes will shine and your heart will thrill with joy, for merchants from around the world will come to you. They will bring you the wealth of many lands. Vast caravans of camels will converge on you, the camels of Midian and Ephah. The people of Sheba will bring gold and frankincense and will come worshiping the Lord. The flocks of Kedar will be given to you, and the rams of Nehobath will be brought from my altars. I will accept their offerings, and I will make my temple glorious." So the Arabs will become friends and servants of Israel eventually and bring them wealth and prosperity. This is about the Arab peoples worshiping the Messiah of Israel. It is happening to some extent now, but it's all going to be even more. Ishmael is also not the father of Islam or of all Arab peoples. The religion of Islam didn't exist until Muhammad formed it, created it, and he was born 600 years after Christ. So way after any of this stuff happened. Christ is already gone when Islam was created. So Israelites that worship both Yahweh and the gods were scattered and millions of them destroyed because God doesn't want us to include everything. It's just him, not the other gods. And verse 16 tells us they lived in villages. In other words, they didn't build walled cities. What Islam is fighting against is the way of life that produces things rather than a way of life that simply takes. The reason there are so many problems are the Arab peoples and Islam in general, they attack people and just take what they want. They're not trying to learn their craft or steal their country or their economy. They just want to take the stuff. They don't want to work for anything. Uh, so when they attacked Europe in 711, it was the wealth uh, they were after, not a way of life. They didn't want to be like them. They just wanted to take everything and leave. So the descendants of Ishmael tended to stay among themselves, for it says they camped alongside their kinsmen. They didn't seem to mix with the Mesopotamians or the Egyptians. They stayed they're very tribal kind of people. So chapter 25 is divided into three parts. The first part is Abraham's life, and then the descendants of Ishmael, and then the final part is Isaac's story and the end of it, really, and then the beginning of Jacob's. So Isaac went a long time unable to have a son, and they weren't beyond childbearing years. It just wasn't happening. But we don't find Isaac going after concubines or trying to fix the system, or Rivka doing any of that stuff like his parents did. They appear to live with it and are still just praying to Yahweh about it until he decides to do something different. Now, the word usually translated to struggle is ba yitzatorusi. And no, I can't say that again, and you probably won't either, but and I apologize to my Hebrew brothers and sisters that probably know how to pronounce that. But it really, when it describes the battle that was happening in the womb, it gives more of a sense of crushing and violent. I have 5 kids, and all of the pregnancies were pretty different, but I know people that have had just incredibly tough pregnancies, and I know people that have had really easy ones. This was apparently like a real violent, a lot of stuff going on. So by declaration, Abraham was a Hebrew, but Isaac was a Hebrew by birth. Because God made Abraham a Hebrew. When Isaac was born, he was automatically a Hebrew by birth. So Ishmael was to be divided and separated away. The effect of that is that Ishmael was not to continue being a Hebrew, but Isaac was. So they were separated. So how come only Isaac is considered a Hebrew? Birthright establishes your physical identity. It is the election and declaration of God that establishes your spiritual identity. So it really doesn't matter where you were born, what color you are, what sex you are. If God calls you righteous, if he redeems you, you're redeemed. That's all it is. So Hebrew was meant to describe a combination of physical and spiritual attributes of a person. The life of a Hebrew was to operate under a set of laws and promises that God made to the first Hebrew, Abraham. So being a Hebrew included your spiritual, mental, physical life. Every aspect of your life was being a Hebrew. You could be born into this, you could be near it, you could know about it, but being a Hebrew meant you followed all of these things. A Hebrew's life was to revolve around that, or revolve around God. Christians should too, but we don't always do that. So even though Isaac was physically a Hebrew, it took an election of God for him to be declared a Hebrew. Beginning with Jacob's kids, one was now a Hebrew by law. Anyone born of this line would be a Hebrew. So if you were not born a Hebrew, it was allowed by means of some rules set down by Yahweh to join, which is what gets us in. Without those, we'd be on the outside too. So this is where that starts, where he allows for a place, a different way for you to join the Hebrews at the time. That way now is Jesus. It's only Jesus. Don't even get me started. This is the Old Testament, though. This is Genesis. So it's with that understanding that Jacob already has that birthright that we must view what happens next. Because Jacob decides he's going to help God out. He says, I'm about to die. It's like, who cares? I'm starving to death. If you have kids, you've heard them say this. In reality, Esau had no birthright to sell. It already belonged to Jacob. It had already been decreed. Jacob had no need to trick his brother, but neither one of them had faith to accept it. So they thought they had to do these things. remember that these are just people. Everybody in the Bible, with the exception of Jesus, was just a regular human being. Selfish, mean, flies off the handle, short-tempered, questionable judgment, all those things that we have, all these people have. I don't know why I'm waving my arms so much today, but they also had pride, just like we do. It's not hard really to put ourselves in the same shoes, but these people that we read about, again, are just people. We have Jacob doing the cooking, which is really significant, and we blow by it and we don't really pay attention to the fact that it is a tradition called sitting Shiva. You probably heard it if you've ever heard of a Jewish person dying. Sitting Shiva, it's part of the mourning process. The family comes and sits and mourns with you. They prepare food. The immediate family is not allowed to cook or do anything. The other family's supposed to come in and take care of all of that. So the grandchildren were not considered immediate family members. That's why Jacob's able to cook. Men also didn't cook either. So this was a big deal that he would be doing this, but he would only be doing it because they were sitting Shiva. Now he's making lentil stew because that's the stew of mourning. That it's a Hebrew tradition. The lentils and the eggs are round, and it's to signify the roundness of life. You start, you die, you're born, you die. That's kind of the way it goes. So it also speaks of one generation dying off and the next beginning. It's an unending pattern that the Hebrew people will remain forever. So Esau knew his grandfather Abraham had died, but rather than be with his family and be sitting Shiva, which is what he should have been doing at this point, he went out hunting instead. So at this point, Esau is basically just an angry mid to late teenager, So when we talk about the rights of the firstborn, it's easy to forget the responsibilities that go along with those rights. Esau knew his grandfather Abraham well. He spent a lot of time with him, and he was aware of the burden he carried running the whole clan. I think Esau didn't want any part of it. He wanted the power probably and maybe the money, but I don't think he wanted the authority. Think about most teens. It's like they don't want that. They want the blessings, but they don't want to have to do any of the work. And Jacob knew that Esau was ready to give up his birthright because, he heard him saying these kind of things. He saw what he did when his grandfather died, went hunting instead. And the death of his grandfather probably just pushed him over the edge. So it was a good opportunity for him. So only in 2 places, though, is a man called a hunter in the Bible. The first one was Nimrod that we learned about, and it really means a man who loves killing animals. Sometimes people, but also animals. I have friends that are avid hunters. They've got all the gear, they go constantly, they love that kind of stuff. But they love the hunt, they love the fight. They don't necessarily love the killing part. But it's a scale, I guess, how you see it. Jacob and Esau were being contrasted here too. The difference between them was really being shown. It's about one who loves killing versus one who loves life. And, that last verse really sums up the whole thing when it says, thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. He didn't appreciate what he had. If you're a parent, you know that. But that's exactly what he was showing God, because he was showing God he didn't care what God had already said. I hope we don't do that in our life. Hit that like button, share, leave me a comment, ask me a question. I love that kind of stuff. It's the questions that make this better. So go out, change the world, love God, love people, and change the world. I'm totally stealing that.